day job, I'm a business consultant looking at change management, but I also chair the York and North Yorkshire Local Enterprise Partnership Steering Group on circular economy and becoming carbon negative. And I'm doing that when I knew nothing probably 2 years ago, and it's very much focused on system changes. And out of that came the Circular MALTON and NORTON project, of which I'm a volunteer and a resident. And what I want to share with you was this idea, which has come from the strategy that York and North Yorkshire sort of LEP and councils have. And it's very much a vision which is to be thriving as a competitive, carbon negative circular economy region, benefiting business and society and the environment. And I think it's very important that it's all have to benefit, like we heard in the film, if we are to change the will and the behaviours. And we're very much a pilot, and I like to think of us as a pebble in the pond. If we can demonstrate success and winning ways for business, society and the environment, then we're shaping a model that all sorts of other people can follow, and other towns, and quickly. So I think what I wanted to highlight was we started from a point that if we are to change behaviours and win hearts and minds, we've got to first understand and acknowledge what real barriers are. And there's a book I love which is called Strategy and the Fat Smoker, which explains why it's always difficult to lose weight, why it's difficult to give up smoking, and probably why it's not in the book, but I think the same principle, why it's difficult to get people seeing the obvious but changing their behaviours with the environment. And I think it's one because it deals with kind of some pain or discomfort or change now and the gains tomorrow. And that really is a limiting factor because people are resistant to change, or people perceive it's going to cost money and it's unaffordable, or perceive that they can't individually make a difference. And that's what this initiative is looking to overcome. I've hidden my mouse here. So our objective is simply to activate everyone. And it doesn't matter if it's just, you know, throw away one less, you know, single-use plastic bottle. If everyone feels they can play a part, collectively that can make a difference. And also, as you start to see the change, it encourages more and more behaviour and so on. So we're looking at what simple actions can be taken but could lead to a meaningful impact. I'm not going to go into lots of the detail about how we're doing it, but some of the initiatives I thought would be useful to share because I'm really pleased I can see some parallels with the film. So one thing is there's lots of good things happening already, and circular economy, just to explain, is about redesigning how we use resources so that nothing goes to waste. So recycling is very much the end of that. We want to try and impact further down the cycle, but every bit helps. So first of all, we're looking very much at how we support initiatives that are refilling or reusing already, because there's some fantastic things already happening, and our role is to try and drive awareness of those and encouragement to use those. I'll come on to that in a minute. Then we've got initiatives as to what can we do with our waste that could actually really make a difference to individual homes and residents and see the benefit that we can bring, and that parallels the path of community energy. Then not just the residents, but can we get schools to drive change and businesses so that we've got everybody going in the same direction. And we are looking to make sure it does bring new jobs, higher value skills, because that's important. As we talked about, we can't just lose jobs or we won't get support for this. And as I've said, there's loads going on already, and in fact it's increasing. When I first did this page about a year ago, I've added quite a lot to it. Some of you will be aware, but not everybody, we've got Rydell Free Fridge, which takes excess or surplus food from businesses and so on, or allotments, and gives it to anybody, any resident, and is really sort of growing and expanding, and I think a great model. We've also got Too Good To Go, which helps businesses make sure they're benefiting from that as well, and can actually see a business benefit. So they kind of go hand in hand. I'm just going to pick on some other examples, but when we have our food festivals, in the last year we went from 20 tonnes of waste at the end of the 2-day festival to 4 tonnes of waste, and the goal when it happens next is 0 waste and 0 single-use plastic as well. We've got businesses that have really benefited both from COVID, but I think introduced that way of working where it's ingredients and you buy what you need rather than stuff that's pre-packaged. And we've got 2 just in our sort of towns, and they're both thriving. And all sorts of things like that. So this is just supporting people who are doing good things already. Something that's quite new is we've got funding to explore the feasibility of that community energy network that we talked about. We talk about being the Yorkshire's food capital, and we could have waste from farms and racing stables. We've got lots of cafes and restaurants, and ultimately our curbside waste as well. But if we could collect all of that waste, that inedible waste, put it into an anaerobic digester and create energy and heat for our town. It exists elsewhere as a model, so we're looking at a place down south that's doing it, and at the moment we're assessing what is the feedstock size that we have. And so I don't have the answers yet, but potentially it could heat and power half of our town. And that could be used for our public buildings and reduce our council tax potentially, or it could be residents buy into it and use their local energy. So I'm really excited by that, and there's lots of consultation going on. So you'll see residents and businesses will see research and survey so that we get everybody's comments, and we'll share where we get to with that feasibility study. I wanted to share this because I find it difficult, myself to understand, well, how does an anaerobic digester work, and what about good food waste and so on. So this is my favourite example with the sausage roll. Even if there was no waste from eating a sausage roll, so no half-eaten sausage roll got disposed of, just what one sausage roll can create could heat a household for 2 minutes or power a laptop for over half an hour. Now, if the one sausage roll can do that, just think what our food waste could do for our town. And I say this is only when any good food that could be used through Too Good To Go or the free fridge has been used up. Okay. And the other thing that I think is very important is how can we get businesses on board, where I hear a lot of them highlight, say, yeah, we'd like to, but it either sits not on a priority list or they think it's going to cost money and they're very much having to watch cash flow and so on. So we set ourselves a challenge, was how can we show businesses not only can you deliver both, but you can turn it into a competitive advantage. And this is where we're working with the local enterprise partnership, who've got case studies now of all sorts of benefits that can come to a business from this. There's funding being put to good use with lots of initiatives for different types of funding. And what is only just been announced, so I'm not sure anyone would be aware of it here, but we've actually secured funding for business support with Oakdean Hollins, who will help and work with businesses to find out what their carbon footprint is, what action plan they can put in place, and help them work through that, and give us tools, not just for those businesses they work with, but for all the businesses in our area, and as a model, again, to go forward for the whole of Yorkshire and the UK. And we've got a business event planned as well. So we've got experts on our doorstep. And I think, we heard on the film that the solutions exist, the science exists. It's all a question of will and collaboration, because that's how these work. And we've got to help people find the benefits of collaborating. The last thing I wanted to share with you, this is an idea. I haven't got funding approval for this yet, But taking it to the next level, I think there's so much innovation that could be created with benefits of net zero. So we are pitching for government funding to create an incubator hub, an innovation hub, for, you know, say Ryedale. We're looking at one for Scarborough with marine aquaculture as well. But imagine something that was made from hemp, was a carbon neutral building, but was a place where we could fund and support innovation to create net zero. That would really just change the dynamics and the mindsets of so many people and create jobs. So that's really just a you know, flyby in terms of what we're doing. But what I've seen is it's gaining in acceleration, it's gaining in interest. I've got businesses of different size telling me they're actually turning this and winning contracts because it's becoming a competitive advantage. There's pension funds suddenly interested in new business that could be created because they know that they can't keep investing in the old technologies and so on. So I'm hoping this will be a domino effect, and that anybody who would like to sort of help be part of this initiative, please let me know. And I do have an ask, and this is my ask. It's not as part of an organisation and so on, but actually we have an opportunity to fast track some of this, the incubator hub, some more initiatives and feasibility studies for lots of the ideas that I saw in the film, because York and North Yorkshire councils have all agreed to become the carbon negative region, the first in the UK. Is a really bold ambition, but one they're behind. And there's an ask to put money forward to the government for this autumn's spending review to fund some, you know, one or two of those incubator hubs, to fund feasibility of energy initiatives. But we have to have agreed that by the 24th of September. And unfortunately, we've got all bar 2 district councils have agreed that. Ryedale and Hambleton still have to agree to that for that to go forward. Otherwise, we just don't even get the visibility. So it's my personal ask, if we could write to those leaders or help persuade those to just put it in, then at least we've got a chance. You know, the phrase of "you've got to be in it to win it" is never more true. So thank you. That's it from me, and I'm happy to take questions as and when Steve would like.
Thank you, Sue. Just on a personal note, will you send me the details of the Ryedale and Hampton thing? As a local councillor in Ryedale, maybe I need to kick some butts.
Will do.
Thank you. That was really informative, and I think there's a few questions coming in chat on that one as well, so that we'll go to that in a second. I'm assuming that there is a website, isn't there, Sue, that people can look at for. There's some other people that are not from this area in the call, and I'd like them to be able to maybe take some advice from you and give some ideas so they can go back to their councils and authorities and say, they're doing this here, why can't they do this here? So if there's any way they can contact you, that would be useful.
I'll put it in the chat box.
Thank you very much. Finally, we have Peter. Peter is the chair of the Ryedale Environment Group, and Ryedale Environment Group is a collective of local groups delivering really good individual actions into the local community and empowering people to get involved. So, but I'll let Peter explain to what it's about, and as soon as Peter's finished, we'll go to questions, and eventually, hopefully, we might even open up the conversation. So, okay, thank you.
Can people hear me? Can people hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, Peter, that's fine.
All right, okay, that's great. Anyway, yeah, good evening, and first of all, many thanks to Environmental Smart for putting on this event, which seems to be going very well, and it's very informative, so thank you. Now, first of all, I noticed that we have visitors from all parts of the country, and I noticed Somerset and Lincolnshire were amongst them. So first of all, Rydale, it's a small area of rural North Yorkshire. It's got no great population centre, but despite that, we have a number of thriving environmental groups all doing their bit to make a difference. And the Rydale Environmental Group, we act mostly as a forum for these different groups to get together and exchange ideas. And so obviously I'm in a good position to have a reasonable overview of what all the different groups are doing. If I went through every initiative, we'd be here all night, which I don't think's the objective. So I thought I'd just concentrate on a couple of things to give you a feel, and I'm obviously very happy to go through other initiatives should people wish during the question and answer session. A lot of the initiatives that local groups do is to do with reducing waste. And one thing that some of these groups are doing is an event called Bring and Take Day. If you look back at the old jumble sales, where people had got all this stuff, they didn't know what to do with it, it's very much the same thing. So people bring in items they don't want that would otherwise go to landfill, and instead of paying for them, people take them away and use them. It's incredibly successful, and it saves an awful lot of waste. To give you a simple example, there's a town called Pickering, which is in the middle of Rydale, and they held one of these events in a very large hall that was actually crammed full of unwanted goods. And by the end of the day, the stuff that was needed for landfill couldn't fill a transit van. So it's terrific, you know, the amount of waste that can be saved by a simple idea like that. The other thing I'd like to mention specifically is that you might think the larger the town or the larger the area, the more you can get done because you've got more volunteers. That's probably generally true, but I thought I'd just give a kind of counter example. Anybody that loves or hates fracking will probably know of the village I live in, Kirby Misperton. We're a very small village, a couple of hundred people, and we have our own environmental group consisting of a grand total of 3 people. So what could a small village like this do of any significance? Well, one thing we do have, which other places don't have, we do have a terrific village hall with lots of parking, and we've been able to set up our own alternative recycling centre. And because of our position, it means a lot of people go through our village, and it's quite a handy spot for many people in the area of Rydale to go through. Some of the things that we recycle here are fairly predictable. Anybody who's aware of TerraCycle will know that they do very good work recycling things like confectionery wrappers, cat food pouches and this sort of thing. We do that, but we do quite a wealth of other things as well, which may not occur to people. One of them is there's a local, there's an initiative that's throughout the country called the Malls Bags scheme, where if you've got unwanted curtain material or similar fabric, it can be converted into carry bags, which first of all means the fabric doesn't go to waste, and secondly means that you're not using so much plastic. So we also have a collection point for these fabrics, which is very successful. There's a local entrepreneur who makes pens out of recycled bottle tops, so we collect those for him. And the most curious of all is that we've got a local hedgehog rescue centre, and they need mascara wands. I mean, I like to think personally it's used to beautify hedgehogs before the mating season, but tragically it's not. What they use these mascara wands for, it's to take ticks away from the hedgehogs that are brought in a distressed state. So that's just a feel of the different kinds of things that we can do as a very small community that does make a difference. I mean, there are plenty of other initiatives I could go on, such as there's charging points for electric cars, there's converting apples into juice to sell to raise money for charity. There are lots of different initiatives that I could talk about. Now, the environmental group itself, our big event for this year, it was going to be a real eco fair, where we had something like 30 exhibitors coming, and it was all very exciting. Because of COVID, that had to be cancelled. So instead, we're organising a virtual eco fair where lots of different groups will be able to come along and showcase their different activities. It's taking part at the end of October. We're lining people up, and it does look like it's going to be certainly in terms of things to watch, it's going to be a success. And we're kicking off with a discussion on green matters with our local MP. So that's really all I wanted to say. So I'm here for questions, and we have a website, and I'll put the link on the chat for you. We've got a Facebook page, and we welcome new members. And I think that's probably my 5 minutes, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Yeah. So and thanks very much for the opportunity.
That's really informative. And actually, and Simon touched on COVID earlier on, and I do know the initiative around here, like similar to the Moors bags, was we had I can't remember the name of the group now, but they basically took recycled materials and turned them into masks for key workers. And I think that probably happened around the country. So it's another example of how inventive people have been. We're going to go to questions now, and to be honest, looking at the people in the call, we could probably open up the conversation a bit more, which is great. Do you know how to raise your hands in a Zoom conversation? Okay, put your hand up. It's probably easier. Put your hand up. I'm going to go to a question first from Pat Smith. Just bear with me, Pat. I need to unmute you. I've got Caroline here, so this is a new experience for us, this one as well. So, Pat, can you unmute yourself? That's easier. Just unmute yourself, I think. Hi, Pat. How you doing? Give us a wave. If you introduce yourself and ask a question, that'd be really great.
Okay. Well, I've written down several questions since then, but I'm from Dorking in Surrey. I'm a founder member of Dorking Climate Emergency, and one of our great aims is to get councils to move much more quickly in what they're doing. And my question was about the Scope 3 emissions, which are the emissions caused in the process of production and the travel costs of getting your peas from Kenya actually into the supermarket and all that kind of thing. And it's a very, very unpopular thing for businesses to think of, and also for ordinary people in the street, because they don't want to be told, oh, you should not be getting your peas from Kenya. You know, they just sort of don't join the dots. And that's probably a bad example, but basically we're all spending too much on buying things. I'm sure we're not, but you know, the population in general, and a need to be persuaded into facing this huge problem and to buy locally and so on and so forth. And that to me strikes me as it's got to be a huge publicity campaign. And I'm thinking Friends of the Earth and similar organisations would be in a very good position to do this. So
yeah, thank you. I'll go to. I think you're right. I think the film touched on that with change. We have to do societal change. But Simon, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think some of the kind of life. There's a lot of things, a lot of discussion in the film about the kind of technological kind of potential, but there's also a lot about the kind of lifestyle choices that people can make. And I think one of the kind of things around COVID is that actually people, to some extent, really kind of reduce their. I mean, the lifestyles have changed. I mean, for a lot of people, it's been quite difficult and challenging. But for a lot more people, it's been kind of, and that kind of having access to nature is really key. I think some of the kind of questions around transporting goods, I think that kind of ties into a lot of the local economy stuff that Sue's talking about, because that's, if you're kind of developing a circular economy and you're actually kind of engaging people to actually think about where goods are coming from. Not you shouldn't eat peas, but actually growing peas in your back garden or getting peas from the local markets that have been grown 5 miles away rather than from Kenya. Kind of getting more in touch with the kind of seasonality of stuff, and not being able to have stuff on demand wherever and whenever you want it, is key to that. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of it's about communication, a lot of it's about kind of engaging people, but I think there is huge potential at the moment to actually kind of people are readdressing kind of lifestyle stuff. So I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. The time is now. And yeah, Pat, you wanted to follow up?
Just come up with a follow-up on that. I couldn't agree more. But also, I mean, I'm thinking of Dorking. We're doing all these things. We've got community fridge. We've got a repair cafe. We've got a community orchard. We've got so many wonderful things that are happening in Dorking. But what percentage of Dorking are actually involved in this? And I'd say probably 15%. So how do we get in touch with the other 85%? And I take on board your thing about lockdown and how you know, people have seen a different viewpoint, but where are they now? They're getting back in their cars and all that, and life, you know, it's as if people are clutching to get back to life as normal without remembering the glory of lockdown and being able to actually see far further than you normally can. So,
I think also Pat, I think it's a question about the financial incentivization. If you kind of if you do tax, I mean, kind of put in a real kind of financial disincentive to people to buy cheap peas from Kenya, then people will respond to those kind of price signals as well. I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, you kind of look at the kind of 5p bag you charge on a plastic bag. That's kind of revolutionised the way people actually. I mean, not that people go to the supermarket anymore, but prior to lockdown, yeah, people were kind of responding to those signals.
But it was hugely publicised. Everybody knew about it, and it was seen as you were the big bad wolf, you know, if you wanted to keep buying plastic bags, because the government acted on it, and the government has shown during lockdown that it can act swiftly and decisively. So they've got to do the same with the.
I think you're right, and that kind of fits into a question that Adela's got about MPs. I think. Adela, you have to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I mean, not just MPs, and not just MPs in this country. I mean, you know, it's a global problem, and you know, I mean, like all these things could. I'm sure that, like, the impression I got from the film was, I mean, these are all fantastic, and you know, the government has shown us, like, suddenly there's a huge amount of money which they've always said that wasn't available. Suddenly there's a magic money tree. I'm sure they're all like that, but you know, it's just the political will. It's just how to force governments all over the world to do the right thing.
Okay, is that a question?
It's not really, it's an observation, not a question.
Which is right. I mean, I think observations are important here. I think society will lead its way in the transition. I just hope that business, and Sue, this kind of brings you into this, can actually lead that transition, that force the policymakers to make those decisions. And we're kind of seeing it in some of the points, I think, that's happening now anyway, because they don't have a choice. It happened with the internet, happened with the car, happened with the TV. The disruption is happening. It's been, and the film touched on this again, to take it back to the film, the vested interest tends to be slowing it down a bit, and as it happened with tobacco, it's now happening with fossil fuels, and yeah, you can see this coming through. Did you want to pick up on that, Simon, Sue, or Peter?
No, I mean, I just briefly mention that our local MP, he will be open for questions and answers end of October, and I'm sure it sounds like you might have a few things to ask him.
Yeah, I may have. Yeah, I've got a few things. I've got a question from Andrew Jenkins. He's got his hand up. Andrew.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we're fine. Yeah, go for it.
You can't see me. I think it's blocked. I think my video is blocked. But yeah, I think. Oh yes, I'll start the video. Thank you. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think I completely agree about local production and consumption of food, and we've actually seen some of that increase locally during the lockdown, when our pop-up pub transformed itself into a pop-up shop, and we did see more of that. But I think we shouldn't forget that there are communities dependent on things like coffee, cocoa production, fair trade cooperatives, and they've suffered quite serious problems during the epidemic. And actually are being suffering from decisions made by Nestle and others, and I think that should be an important part of this. So it's not all about local food. There are producers, and I worked in Bangladesh for many years with an organization which was doing a lot on education of girls, and we've seen fertility rates drop tremendously. I really agree with that aspect of the video, but a lot of that depends in a number of countries on cooperatives continuing to function so that girls can go to school. So I think we should bear that in mind and put it in that kind of context. Otherwise, you know, we really do need to make sure that the donut benefits the people in the middle of the donut, and isn't something that we are preoccupied ourselves without thinking of the effect on those people.
I think you're right. That's a very astute comment. I think, you know, and I think the film did try to deal with that by still recognising there will be an economy needed in these places, because otherwise, you know, it goes back to first world problems. We're dealing with it, we pass our problems on to the third world and second world and across the globe. So it happens in the fossil fuels of the global south problem, as Simon mentioned earlier on. You know, in this country we managed to get a moratorium of fracking through campaigning, but across the world, obviously, the practice is going on, affecting communities a lot more than they did, or potentially could have done over here. So yeah, it's important. But yeah, I'm
working with a group in Vietnam which is campaigning on issues like Japanese investment is being used to build power stations in Vietnam, which are going to burn imported Australian coal, and that is so wrong on so many levels. But I think we need to link up with those people trying to question these things in the global south as well. So.
If I can just come on that, Steve, if I may.
Yes,
some of the work that we've been doing in recent years in Paraguay has been really kind of part of that kind of trying to resolve that particular challenge you're talking about. One of the key challenges was in Paraguay is the fact that the kind of big multinational grain producers, people like Cargill and others, are really kind of basically forcing the kind of peasant campesino farmers off the land to create their own kind of monocultural soy plantations. What we've seen in Paraguay is around 97% of Paraguay's forests have been destroyed in the last 50 years, purely to make way for that kind of that soy production. And that soy production is basically part of the supply chain for Europe's livestock industry. It's basically kind of creating the animal feed that goes into our animals, that's fed to our animals in intensive farming. And that's kind of having massive effects, not just on the environment, but also on the welfare and well-being of those farmers in Paraguay.
I was just going to sort of build on what you said, Simon, and what was said earlier was, I think one of the upsides of COVID has definitely shown that sort of localness, community, etc. The key is we've kind of got to come up with initiatives and how it works to enable people to keep on going, because as things drop back to the way they were, people will default to their own behaviours. And so that's why I'm really keen to get as many projects sort of as demonstrators, really, for people to see, because I think that was the power of the film for me, seeing that in practice. When a local farmer can see that happening to another farm down the road, that's when they'll start to change. That's kind of one element. And I think, politicians will be happy if they're given here is a proposal and a solution, and they can have their photo taken by it. Excuse me, but and I don't mind who gets the credit for it, as long as we kind of make it happen.
Yep.
And the other thing is we've got so much potential on our doorstep that I hear about. There's a company called Seagrown who's growing and harvesting seaweed, which has all sorts of benefits and carbon capture and so on. So how do we help them connect with the farmers or other people and see that leverage, rather than just sorry, I've got a fly going out in my hands. So it's that connectivity and collaboration which doesn't often happen. And I think projects like Peter was talking about as well, it's like if we can set those up, we can quickly demonstrate and then show people to how to get on board with it. And I think it will be a bottom-up approach, which is why a market town is manageable enough, or a village or a town, I think, to see these things happen.
Thanks, Sue. And interestingly, we actually did ask Wave, and yes, that is his name at Seagrown. He's called Wave, to join the call tonight. Unfortunately, they're moving a boat from Scotland to Scarborough, but we hope to bring them into the call. We're having another hosting of the film in October with the environment group, the local environment group, so we hope to bring them into that conversation then as well. And possibly a couple more international viewpoints as well, particularly on rainforest. I've got Kate Locke with a hand up, Luke, and then Tobias. So Kate.
Yeah, hi, thanks very much, and thanks so much for arranging this film showing. I hadn't seen the film before. I had heard about it. I just love so it's an observation and a question. I love the sort of optimism of it, and I have to say it very nearly made me cry. And I think crying in a good way, which so often thinking and talking about climate change makes me want to cry in the other way. So it was really nice, and I felt it was a very relatable film for what you might call a non-climate audience as well, especially the sort of heart tug appeal of the father kind of writing this kind of letter to visual letter to his daughter. Very clever, and the use of visuals as well, and technology in the way they did that. So I think I relate to a lot of it. I work in climate change research. I'm very familiar with Project Drawdown, and they really work through some of the top solutions from Project Drawdown, and to actually see them illustrated was tremendously useful as well. It's one thing talking about it, but actually to see it is very, very helpful. And also the donut economics as well, which I'm sort of involved with in different ways. So fantastic to see it visualized. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And just going back to what I said about climate change, I'm sure some of you will probably have read the book by Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivett-Carnac called The Future We Choose. And they really talk about the need for gritty optimism, and they say it's a mindset that you have to kind of really work on, and I find it quite hard, and this is kind of helping. So my question to the panelists is really, we've seen some very inspiring examples in the film, and it's been very inspiring to hear all about what's happening in MALTON and all the stuff that you're involved with, Sue. Absolutely fascinating, and also the stuff that's happening that Peter's involved with. But could the panelists maybe sort of point to other sort of ways in which, could we keep coming back to this, how do we engage more people, and something that I'm constantly working on, thoughts on that, sort of getting more people involved in that positive visioning about the future, because I think that's what we need. We need to inspire people. People are frightened and they can't deal with it. So,
I think that's a really good point, and telling a positive, powerful story is probably one of the greatest motivators we have. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'll go to Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for putting me up first again. I think you're absolutely okay. I think
I'll go to Sue.
No.
I'm joking.
It's about kind of encouraging people to kind of come together in a community and actually develop the vision for what for the community, kind of posing the challenges, yes, posing the challenges of climate change, environmental breakdown, but really kind of identifying what they kind of want from the community. We've got over 200 climate action groups around the country. Some of those are really kind of involved in that kind of really kind of deep discussions, community discussions within their local communities, about actually what is the vision for their community that they want to see. And that's really been engaging a lot of the kind of young folk from the community as well, because it's their kind of future. It is the future we choose. It's their future that's going to be affected. But I think that kind of linking up between the kind of local positive action and the fact that that's kind of having a national and international, if it's all kind of brought together. That collective effort is having that kind of national and international impact as well. I think that's a really kind of powerful and compelling story to kind of portray in communities.
Thanks, Simon. Anyone else want to pick up? I think mobilisation is quite important, and it's that age-old thing when it comes to volunteering, isn't it? It's trying to get people actually engaged is key. I'm going to go to Luke now, who's had his hand up for a while actually. So I'm just conscious of time a little bit. We are at 9:30. We did say we'd do it for an hour, but we can keep going for a bit longer if people are still interested. And to be honest, I'm quite keen in the last 10 minutes just to let the conversation flow. So I'll go to Luke and then Tobias. You're muted, Luke. I didn't think
Hi everyone. I just wanted to ask the panelists how many of them have applied for Rishi's £5,000 voucher opened this week, last week, and has anyone else gone through the process? It looks like it's nice to see air source and ground source in the system, and then